Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to be talking all about unlearning. Now, oh, I just see a little notification here. Okay, all right, we are good. Okay, so today we're going to be talking all about unlearning. Now, this is something that I learned in school that I never really, I didn't know it was a thing, which I found very interesting that when we learn things, we also have the power to unlearn things so that we can relearn new things, which is a very, very important element. So today, what we're going to be talking about is unlearning your limiting beliefs about yourself. We're also going to be talking about unlearning habits of people pleasing, as well as unlearning the fear of change and how to embrace that transformation, which are three very important elements of unlearning. So, what is unlearning? So, to give you a little bit more of synopsis of that, is unlearning is just to dive in a little bit deeper to what I already said was so in school, let's say for instance, you learn. Actually, I'm going to use an example that my kids always say to me. Well, they used to always say to me when they're little is 2 plus 2, no, what? Yeah, 2 plus 2 equals window, right? Is that correct? Definitely not. We know that, right, as adults, right? But they had this little, which is totally irrelevant to my story, but they had this little thing that they did. Oh no, it was 1 plus 1 equals window. That's what it was. Sorry. It's been a long time since they told me this. This not really story, but they said it to me. So the one, right? And then, the plus sign in the middle, right? Equaling like the window, right? So 1 plus 1 equals window is where they're getting that from. So what I'm saying about that is, so in order for that to actually be equals to 2, instead we need to unlearn that 1 plus 1 equals window, right? Because that's not correct, right? So you need to break that pattern, that thought, and implement something into it, right? That's how you're going to relearn. So it's stripping away those layers to be able to think of it in a different capacity. Even for instance, sometimes, like for instance, if you're learning a different language or whatever, right? Like say for instance, I know poco español, which means a little bit of Spanish. Um, Usually when you're native in whatever language, say for instance, my first language is English. Um, I will automatically, before I even start to speak Spanish, I will automatically, my brain will interject that English thought or the English word, right, into my head. And then the Spanish translation comes. So let's say uno, right? Actually, interesting. When I just said that, I didn't even about thinking about that's the number one, right? So the thoughts that were going on inside my head was not the number one. It was just uno, right? It's it has become ingrained in my mind, right? Like I've said it so many times. Fun fact about me, I actually used to live in Costa Rica many, many, many years ago. So that's where I picked up majority of my Spanish language, and then I've kind of lost it over the years. But anyways, that is completely not relevant. So jumping back to what unlearning is basically just stripping back all those layers and then relearning something new in a new capacity is essentially what it is. So that's what we will be talking about today. Okay. All right. So unlearning limiting beliefs about yourself. So here's the thing. So many of us, right, we have outdated thoughts or even harmful beliefs about ourselves, right? About who we are. And they are also going to be shaped by our past experiences, right? They could even be shaped by society or societal standards, or it could even be other people's opinions. So, I mean, if you're younger, it could be by your parents. It could be by teachers, it could be professors, could be your boss, it could be many different people, could even be a friend, right? It could even be a child, right? Child parent relationship. It could be many, many different dynamics in that aspect, right? But some of these inner thoughts that might come into your head would be like, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm never going to be better. I'm never going to improve. Um, I'm too old to change. I love that one. Here's the thing, you're never, 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 ever too old to learn something, right? Like, never. That is your own frame of mind. Um, Definitely. Right. So I, fun little story. Um, so I was chatting with a friend of mine. This is back when I was pregnant with my last baby. And I felt old being pregnant, which I wasn't old. I wasn't considered like a geriatric pregnancy or anything of that nature. It was definitely well before that. And I was talking with a friend of mine. Ironically, she was a friend from Costa Rica, and she felt young. And she's literally a week younger than me, right? So it's just all in my own perception of my own thought, right? So I felt I was too old, and she felt she was young, right? So I thought about that and I was like, huh, okay, wow. I had to reframe that thought, right? So I had to strip back those layers and figure out, well, why I thought that. Can I reframe that? Right? Can I feel younger being pregnant? And which I was able to do that. And this is even before I learned about unlearning. So, in order to unlearn these limiting beliefs about yourself, is you need to change the validity, replace, reframe them, and change them. So, how can you change them? So, say for instance, for me, I just changed my inner thoughts, right? From thinking that I was old to thinking that I was not, well, yeah, I guess young, right? Essentially. So, you want to strip back those layers and change and redefine those old narratives, those old stories that you're telling yourself. Because normally these are just thoughts, inner thoughts that come and that are within your own thought. I was going to say your own brain, but your own, well, I guess brain works. Um, so I want you to start questioning, right? I want you to start questioning your beliefs, right? That you've internalized, right? I want you to ask yourself, are those accurate? Is there any truth to it? Where did that limiting belief come from? Is that a story that you're just telling yourself, right? Is it your story? That's an important one, right? Because chances are pretty good that it's going to be a story from your childhood at some point, right? So we need to start to rewrite that story about who you are and what you are capable of, right? Okay, now we're going to jump into unlearning the habit of people pleasing. So, so many of us, right? Especially if you're navigating or if you have anxiety or if you're even going through menopause, right? You have been conditioned to put everybody else's needs ahead of your own. And this habit, honestly, it stems from a deep desire to be liked and to be accepted, right? But in all honesty, people pleasing, it will leave you feeling drained. It will leave you feeling very anxious, as well as feeling undervalued. And those honestly, those things do not serve you whatsoever. So we need to get you to unlearn those, right? And again, jumping back to understanding where those came from, right? So let's unpack that a little bit more. So honestly, it's going to be about setting or creating boundaries around this, right? It's saying no to the things that you do not want to do, right? So, say for instance, someone asks you, I'm moving this Saturday. You want to come over and help me? Mm, sorry, I have other plans, right? It's just being able to say no, right? Unless, of course, you really truly want to go and help that person, or if it's your child, which you probably should say yes, and then actually follow through with that. Um, so it is recognizing that your own needs, they hold value, right? They have value, and that they are just as important as anybody else's. But it's putting yourself and what you need and what you want ahead of anybody else's. Okay. So here's something fun. So I want you to start to practice saying no. I always recommend going and getting a mirror or standing in front of your mirror. And what is a common thing that people tend to ask you for? Again, let's jump back to the moving thing, right? It's more of a guy thing usually. Um, but say, for instance, someone's asking you, moving on Saturday, you want to come over and help? I'm sorry, I'm busy. I have, uh, sorry, I'm hesitating because I didn't have a thought prior in my head here. But so basically, what you do is in the mirror say, no, I'm sorry, Josh, I can't come over and help you because I have no childcare. Well, that's okay. You can bring your kids. No, I promised Billy Bob that I would do this with him this weekend, and I don't want to break that promise. Right? It's being able to think on the spot, come up with not necessarily an excuse, but putting yourself first. Or you could say that you have a date. This is something that I love. And what I mean by that is, even if you don't, right? Because it's so important to have dates for yourself, right? So doing things for you, and this is something else that I like to talk about too, which is self-care, right? Is setting up and creating that space to do things for you, right? Which is so important. Excuse me. So basically, I want you to start being able to say no, but in a polite manner, right? And you don't want to overwhelm yourself. And just knowing that it is okay for you to prioritize yourself, right? Okay, so the next one, unlearning the fear of change and embracing transformation. Okay, so many of us fear change, especially when it comes to emotional shifts. So that could be menopause, could even be personal growth, um, could even be like our own confidence, right? Oh, excuse me, my apologies. So we've been taught that change, like we resist change. We also fear change. We don't know what's on the other side. So what I like to do is, like when I'm explaining this to people, is here's the wall, right? So there's a wall in front of me, right? And then I have a fist, right? And that wall is that resistance. I can't get past that because I feel uncomfortable, right? But here's the thing, everything that you want or you desire is on the other side. So, how do you get to this space over here, right? When you're just met? with that resistance, right? You're just constantly going up and you don't want to create that change because you're fearful, right? You've been put into your your fight flight, right? So we have to break through or even unlearn things so that you're able to move forward, right? So it's not a threat. It's not something that's scary. It's just something that needs to be pushed through. It could even be under, could be over, right? But it's something that you need to push through to be able to have the opportunities that you want to be able to grow, to heal, to have that self discovery, right? And transformation is honestly, it's a natural progression of life, right? And with the right tools, with the right mindset, it can lead to a more empowered you, right? It's going to be a more authentic version of yourself, right? So instead of fearing change, I want you to start embracing change, right? I want you to take small little steps that are going to help you to be able to get to that change, right? I want you to celebrate each of those actionable steps, right? No matter how small they are. Often we tend to not do the celebratory pieces. We just tend to keep going forward, right? And we don't take that opportunity to stop. Stop and basically smell those flowers, right? Which is important because it's also recognizing that change can be overwhelming, it can be stressful, right? But these small baby steps are going to help you towards the bigger picture of things, which is super, super important. Um, okay, so just to recap what we were talking about today is we talked about unlearning limiting beliefs about yourself, right? On how to strip back the layers. We also talked about unlearning habit of people pleasing, right? Practicing saying no in front of the mirror in a polite or declining in a polite manner. And then, of course, fear of change and embracing transformation. So it's breaking through that barrier, that wall that we've put up to protect ourselves, right, from fear. So it's just being able to go through that to be able to create the changes that we want in life. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to our next time.